Okay, let's see. Well, we'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. And thank you for coming.
Can I let you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I was just going to wait till 7 o'clock because that's what time we said we would start anyway. And I do know that we have somebody that's connected via Zoom. So we've got both going on tonight, just so you know. But anyway.
I just want to get home. I have a situation where Friday I totaled up my car with a deer. Oh no. Dark. If I wreck her vehicle, I'll be out of the will. So I get home before. So, yeah. She's on pins and needles, let me use this micro. I'll take good care. So, okay, have a good evening. Yes.
Okay, we will get rolling here. I've got 7 o'clock or a little bit after. So we'll get started with this very quickly. And for those of you, and I know at least one gentleman has been was at the board meeting. But what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to go through the summary of the listening sessions. Now I want to be very clear. It's just a summary. I call it the big book, and yet I don't know that we've actually got it into a big book. But all of the information, everything that was ever written, will be on a web page that will be started at and will be coming soon, and I'll let you know, or I'll talk to that at the end. Very quickly, if you attended to any of the sessions, you saw these individuals. You saw Lori there. Lori is the main person in charge. She's the one that handles most of this and has been working directly with the school all the way through. Jason Splett, the second gentleman in there, he did a lot of the facility type assessments. Of course, myself is next, and then Lynn Dyer. We, in combination with Lori, did all of the listening sessions. We did the educational adequacy. In other words, we walked the buildings and went through and measured spaces and so forth and so on. In all of this, what we did is we asked a series of questions. Now you're seeing the questions up there to go through them. And again, if you were part of any of the groups, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We did most of these through a Zoom, a face-to-face kind of Zoom thing, but we also did some that were by paper, trying to accommodate folks that maybe didn't have devices at that point in time. But we asked these questions here. The only change and the only deviation that we made is that when we met with the school board, you see on the right-hand side, you see the last bullet there. Instead of asking the school board to give themselves advice, we asked them what their expectations of the process was, and then they would give us the results. So I'm going to get into results here pretty quick. The other piece of this, and I want to clarify one thing. In every meeting I talked about that we would meet with a group of students, which we did meet with a group of students. The problem we had, though, unfortunately, is that there was some communication breakdown in the whole piece. We only had a handful of students, and we only had 20 minutes, and we were in this room, and lunch was coming. So we had to pull out some of the questions when we met with the kids, but we did have a few additional questions. But when we did meet with the kids, we talked about great things. We talked about challenges. We talked about advice. We talked about facility needs. Otherwise, we did skip those other three and then a couple others that we would normally ask students. So you won't see that necessarily in the results. This is just some snapshots of some of the groups that we met with, people that were there. You see some pictures there of staff when we met with staff, some of the community groups that we met with. These are the groups that we met with. We had 12 total sessions. We met with everybody internally in the district that was available when they could during staff development time. Then we also met with, we had 4 community sessions, one of which was virtual. So it was an open session. People just logged in and we went through the same process with them. Otherwise, we were face-to-face. And again, we attempted to do this just because of COVID and trying to, of course, have the social distancing. I would stand up here just like I'm doing right now. We'd go through the questions. People would type in their responses on the devices that they had. What you're going to see now, I'm going to actually get into the summary. What you're going to see now, and you're going to have a series of slides. You'll see 2 boxes. One will talk about internal and one will talk about external, and I'll speak to that here in a second. So when we ask the question, what are the great things happening in the district? Now, this is not in any particular priority order. It was just the way we put it in the box. And these were the top areas or things that showed up common or more frequent than some other statements. So if you look on the left-hand side of the screen up there on the internal part of it, you'll see that there was this was mentioned, great teachers and staff, small class size, close-knit community, caring community, great students, growing enrollment, student activities. If you flip to the external, again, that's your community groups, new high school, again, great elementary teachers in this case, forward thinking, strong strategic plan, great community, dedicated staff, residential growth. What you'll see as I go through these boxes, you're going to start to see some alignment between both groups. It won't be in every case, but you'll see some commonalities, and that becomes an integral part of this report, especially when the board starts to analyze the information. And if at any point you got a question, please stop me. When we ask the challenge question, on the left-hand side, internal common themes, things that showed up on a frequent basis, teacher retention, high turnover, COVID, too many expectations, trust and transparency with school board and admin, portions of the elementary classroom space, HVAC over at the elementary, salary, curriculum updates. On the external side, teacher retention, again, you're going to see some commonalities here. COVID, elementary school is outdated, lack of transparency, lack of administration, communication, and low pay and salaries. Again, these are not the exhausted list. There's a much longer list, but these are the things or the themes that showed up more frequently. The lottery question, and the way we positioned this, we said if you won the lottery, but you had to spend it on school, what would you spend it on? What would be your priority in a sense of what you think has to be done? You can walk into the school board, write a check, say, here we go. This is what we think should happen. Again, this is in no particular order of priorities. I want to clarify that. It was just the way we put it in the box. Higher teacher salaries, updated elementary school, HVAC again for the elementary, hire more staff paras, technology upgrades, collaborative areas and spaces on the internal side. External side, better teacher salaries, new elementary school, track at the high school, more tech classes, elementary school parking lot, and technology updates and access. Questions? So when we ask the question about headlines, and we set this up that if you were going to write the headlines about the Lake Park Autonomous School District 10 years from now, what would you want it to say? What would you hope it would say? On the internal side, this is staff now, reminder of that, this is staff. LPA, enrollment growing, #1 teaching staff. LPA is the best place to be. Highest level of teacher retention, innovative school district, LPA highest paying district. LPA leads the state in academic achievement, and LPA sets their students up for success. On the external side, most academic award, LPA ranks #1, enrollment is up, LPA has a great staff, LPA is innovative, LPA prepares students for future, competitive salaries, and 100% graduation rate. Questions? Surprises? Anything that surprises you up to this point from what you've seen in these first slides? All right, come on. Oh no, don't tell me this is froze up. Here we go. Advice. We asked every group the same question again, except for the board. We said, and the way we position this is that we're going to give a lot of information over a period of time to the school board. And they're going to look at demographics, which is your enrollment. They're going to look at facilities and these listening sessions and so on and so forth. If you were going to give them advice as they walk through this process, what would it be? Again, I'll repeat, these are not in any particular order, just the way we put it on the box or in the box. On the internal side, listen to teachers, parents, and community. Be open with communication. Do what's best for kids, think and build for the future. Let staff know they are appreciated. Invest in our schools, be able to take advice and listen with an open mind. On the external side, you see the open mind piece again. Be open-minded, prepare students for the future. Do what's best for kids. You see that show up again. School board needs to make good decisions, not what makes everyone happy. Invest in the schools to create space, an environment that inspires learning. Create an environment that teachers and staff want to work. Questions? So if we took a look, the expectations question that we gave for the board administration, this is what their response was, or their reaction to that feedback. Community engagement and participation in setting up the LPA school future plans and improvements. Be transparent in the process. One of the things you probably saw on one of the other slides, or the slide I just showed you. We, administration and board, own the plan. Help in building a positive relationship with community to move forward. How can we as a district improve? One of the things that we always talk about, and I know I talked about it in the listening sessions, one of the things that we're always looking for to at least help the district move forward is, where do you see the commonalities? And again, in some of these slides already, you've seen some commonalities between external, internal, board administration, and so forth, so on. That becomes, in many cases, that does become the foundation of whatever plans as the school board starts to move forward. So we asked a facility question, and we then, what we did is we calculated how many times did we see a specific item. And now I'm going to show you some slides relative to that. It's a little bit of an eye chart there. I'm not going to try to read all of these for you folks, but this happens to be the external group. And if you look on the left-hand side over there on the comments, September 15th, update the HVAC at the elementary, showed up 3 times. Larger cafeteria and kitchen in the elementary, 3 times. Sound enhancements in the old gym in the elementary, 3 times, and so on and so forth. You see a lot of 3s there, lots of responses that were all very similar as far as how many times they showed up. Right below it, September 17th, you'll see gym space at both schools, 9 times. Elementary school parking, 8 times. Lots of 7s there, a few 7s, more classroom space at the elementary. A swimming pool, 7 times. Larger elementary cafeteria and kitchen and dedicated, 7 times, and so on. On the right-hand side, the September virtual, this is the external group that we did virtually. Again, elementary renovation or new building, 9 times. Connectivity technology at the elementary for teachers and students, 8 times. More parking space district-wide, 7. And then it just starts to tail off a little bit there as far as lighting and hiring a school nurse and more gym space and so on. In September 23, on this one here, upgrades to the elementary building, 3 times. Adaptive bathroom at the elementary, 3 times. And again, it kind of tails off. Now, I would want to also bring to your attention that there were more comments than this, but we just had to cut. We just cut it for the purpose of not standing up for about 2 hours here trying to go through every one of them. We cut it off at a certain level relative to how many times we saw one. But there were many more comments than just this. Questions? So if you just took the common things from the external, and again, there is no priority to this. We didn't arbitrarily just decide we're going to cut it off here. Elementary school updates, renovations, and additions. Technology updates, elementary school parking, and more gym space district-wide. Those came out of all 4 of those graphs that I just showed you. Questions? If you look at the internal now, this is your high school staff, non-certified elementary staff, as well as non-certified. Looking on the far left over there where it says high school staff, space at the elementary, 15 times. Upgrades to the oldest classroom sections, space, finishings, furnishings, and so on, 13 times. Elementary parking, 13 times. Need more lunchroom space, elementary, 13 times. Interesting that this is coming out of your high school staff now at this point. Right underneath it, You have more space for students, commons, flex work, space, comfort, high school and elementary 9 times. High school outdoor classroom space. Elementary school renovations and expansion, 8. More storage at high school, 8, and then it starts to tail off. On the elementary side, there you can, right in the middle, replace and update lower elementary, K3, 8 times. Roof that doesn't leak, 8 times. More room throughout, growth in the plus growth in the elementary, 7. Gym space, district-wide, 7. And then again, it starts to tail off a little bit. Right underneath that, elementary school, classroom space, 20. Security, 18. HVAC, 15. K3, 15. EC roof, 15. Or, elementary roof, 15. And again, it starts to tail off. The reason you see 2 of those is we had them split up in 2 groups. So I was in one gym with one group, and Mr. Dyer was in a different. Lori and I were together, and Mr. Dyer and Jason were in a different one. So that's why you see 2 separate columns there. And if you look at the non-certified, which was, to my knowledge, it was everybody that was available that could come, and they showed up here at the high school. Keyless entry throughout the district, 16. Not enough room at the elementary, 13. Not enough room at the high school for larger early elementary grades, 11. HVAC at the elementary, 10. Roof, 9. Child care space after and before school, 7. And storage facility throughout District 6. Questions? When we did this with the board administration, and just a reminder, if you were part of these groups, then you know what I'm talking about, but we got a list from everybody, and then we had them, we usually use 60% of the number, and then they would give us their priority in no particular order, but they would list it out. The board administration, when they did their prioritization on the facility piece, welcoming area district-wide, 11. General conditions of the elementary, 7. Pre-K through 3 classroom space, 6. Get several 6s in a row there. Utilization of space district-wide, 6. Security, 6. Upgrade elementary classrooms, 5. Keyless entry at elementary, 5. Couple of 4s there. Collaborative space for staff and students at both buildings. High school CTE space at 4. LTF maintenance plan, 3, and upgrades to football field and track, 1. That was your board administration. Long-term growth committee, that was another group that we met with. We actually met with them quite a while earlier this process, but this was their responses. Space at the elementary, 8. Elementary school as a whole, 7. Collaborative space, 7. Childcare space, 7. Space at secondary, 6. Elementary technology, 5. Community space, walking track, meeting rooms, etc., 4. 1 new bus garage with fuel storage, 3. Track and football around the football field, 3. And then, of course, the high school football field accessibility, 2. On the student group, seating at the football stadium, 8. Updates and maintenance to football field, 6. Track at the high school, 5. Collaborative space at both schools, 4. HVAC at K3, 4. Parking at elementary, 4. And then a larger cafeteria at elementary, in this case, didn't get any votes. Now, I got to be honest, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. It's the first time when we've done a student group that they didn't say, give us more food or nap time kind of thing. I mean, it was, they were, bless their heart. I felt bad for them because they kind of came in little groups, and there was some confusion with it, but they were great when they were in the room. So we had a lot of fun with that. So if we took a look at the top facility needs, again, not in any particular order. Elementary school updates and renovations. HVAC at the elementary parking, additional space at the elementary school, flex space and breakout space district-wide, high school track, and storage space district-wide. Questions? Surprises? Anything that would surprise you in this? Okay? So if we take these and put these side by side, and we do this commonly, we'll take the top areas that showed up. Again, I want to repeat, it doesn't mean that the other areas weren't important, but we make a cutoff at some point and we just show, again, the commonalities. If you look at the internal and the external, you can look at the arrows. Both the internal groups and external obviously thought elementary school and updates and renovations were important. If I drop down to the fourth bullet on the elementary side, again, it just talks about the elementary school as far as additional space, which again ties into that external piece. Then the one arrow that's right kind of in the middle of those sections, elementary school parking. And then of course you can see the additional responses that were more or less stood alone with their respective groups. Questions? How many of you, I know obviously I know the gentleman in the back was, but how many of you were part of any of the listening sessions? 1, 2, okay. So you weren't, no, okay. Anything out of this, and I know you had a question earlier, but anything out of this that surprised you, disappointed you, or you thought, oh yeah, that makes sense kind of thing? Anything? Does it make sense? Was it too fast? Do I need to go? I mean, I went through it. I didn't want to tie up too much. Again, it's just a summary, so I want to be careful that you understand. This is not the whole report. This is just a summary report. This is exactly what was given to the school board. And if you were at those meetings, then you know that we commented that you guys would see the exact same thing that we shared with the school board. Yes. Okay.
So now this portion has been done. You guys have obviously done a walk through, and when is that the next step?
Okay, for the people that are on Zoom, I'm just going to repeat your question. You were wondering about when are we going to, because we've done our walkthrough, et cetera, when are we going to share the next or the rest of the information? Did I catch?
I assume the school board hired you to do an assessment on this.
Yes, and we have done that.
Your different expertise, but when you gathered all the public's thoughts.
Yep.
When do we get to hear what you thought?
I know that Lori will be working with Paula to set that up. The question again is, when are we going to give our other information, our demographics, if you will, our facility assessment, our educational adequacy report back to the board or deliver that to them? I know Lori and Paula will be working on that for one of the upcoming school board meetings, because we generally will provide that to school board first before we provide that out to other folks. But that's yet to be scheduled, but that will be coming. So you can rest assured that will come. It just hasn't been scheduled that. And I think, and I mean, hopefully people understand it. Obviously with the COVID thing and things have been going on, it's been really tough. This process, and again, I've been doing this a long time, this process here has really been, I don't want to say makeshift, but I mean, we've had to do things completely out of order just because we had to try to place it where we could, when we could get in front of people and so forth and so on. So it's been a little bit out of sequence up to this point, but that will be scheduled. And so you will see that. You'll see the educational adequacy report, and that's the one where Lynn and I walked all the spaces. We measured everything. We took all that data down, not just measurements, but natural lighting and computer drops and storage and cabinetry and so on and so forth. We put that together, we matched that up, or we compared that, I should say, to the Minnesota Department of Education guidelines. Everything from cafeteria to green space to classroom to shops to office to you name it. And then we color coded that relative to the comparison to the Minnesota Department of Ed guidelines that they say schools should look like or physically be alike. It's not a policy, it's not a mandate, but we then color coded it. And basically what it meant is that if it met those guidelines or exceeded, and this is something you'll see when that report comes out, you'll see a green color. There's 18 different categories. You'll see a green color. If it kind of met it, in other words, it partially met the guidelines and partially didn't, then you'll see a yellow color. If it didn't meet the guidelines, for that particular category, then you would see a red. And each one of the categories has specific elements to it that we again, once we took the data, we matched it up with that, and that's that report. There's another report that Jason Splett actually did, and that's the whole HVAC and that type, your mechanical stuff. And then that will be part of another report. And then of course you have the demographics that basically talks about where's your growth going enrollment wise? Is it going? How much is it going up? And it will project out over the next 10 years. And that report has been worked on already. So that's coming. That's a good question. Thank you. Anything else though with this report? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, I am. Actually, there's one here. I'll just put it up there just for now. Mm-hmm. That just means that they work through us, or so they're not running independently relative to contracts and so forth and so on. So we're working for the district. We're working, obviously, and would continue to work with the architect if and when there is ever a plan or a decision to make relative to whether it's renovations or building new or that type of thing. But they fall under our umbrella as opposed to, and we found that to be the most successful for a smooth transition for districts as they move forward in a process, as opposed to having two different entities coming back and talking to school boards or administration or however that piece is. And we all talk together, but yes, we will, for lack of better terms, we drive that bus, if I can say it that way. But good question. I'm not sure the people on, the question came about that an architect has been hired, and I apologize, I got to just repeat it because there's people on here for Zoom. Architect has been hired and it will be under the umbrella of ICS, and that was my response to that particular question. He was wondering how that worked. Good question though.
And Glenn, this is Lori on the Zoom call. Just to clarify, as far as the ed demographics and facility assessment results, that was presented back to the school board on June, at their June board meeting.
Oh, okay.
What we are going to do is, you can see the dedicated microsite. This is an opportunity. We will put all that information on the site, so anybody and everybody can have access to that information. And then if there's questions, we can definitely address any questions that you have directly related to that. But that had been presented back in June.
Okay, if you didn't hear that, I apologize. I didn't realize that had already been presented in June, but it was presented to the school board and the facility committee, Lori?
Correct. So the,
yes. Yep. Okay, the facility committee and the board in June, but that all of that information, it will be going on this dedicated microsite that will be. Yes. Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Lori.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anything else though? Any other questions? Sure. No, it's just an architect that the question is this specific to just the elementary? I'm talking to the folks on the Zoom part now. As far as the architect and so forth, the architect was just if and when there is a plan to move forward relative to whether it's build new, renovate, whatever, the architect is now already in place to be able to do that. There has been no drawings, there hasn't been anything developed out of that. They just went through that process now so that they have that in a placeholder, for a lack of better terms, that as this moves forward and whatever develops out of that. Right, exactly. So they knew, and the way it's commonly worked is and when or if a plan develops, then you can start talking to an architect who can then start giving you drawings of what things may or may not look like, kind of thing, before you ever get to any finalization of anything. Okay, good question though. Thank you. Anything else? No? You'll let me off the hook that easy? Sure.
You're gonna give it to the school board. Do you like assist the school board in helping them develop other plans or action plans to address the issues? Or are they like, here's your information, you gotta do whatever you.
No, the simple answer and the correct answer is yes, we will work with them hand in hand. What I said earlier, and that's what I've always appreciated about this company, because that's how they worked with us at Park Rapids when we did a project over there. They didn't walk in and tell us you have to do this or you have to do that. They gave us the information. Then my school board, and I was the superintendent at that time, we sat down and we took a look at it. And then we tried to figure out what made sense. What could we do? What could we afford to do? Did we have to go out to the taxpayer? I mean, all of those things played into it. And then this company just worked with us all the way through that process, right to the end when we finally ended up doing. We did do a project, but they worked with us hand in hand. And Lori would be the one to be up front of that.
Do you help with the issues that aren't bricks and mortar issues too?
We have, yes, yes. Yeah, we've helped with communication and things of that, yes. Yeah, we've tried to give, and part of that process is the various, I mean, you've met myself and Lynn, of course, so they brought educators in to help part of that process. Obviously, Lori is in a different piece of this, but she's got her expertise. And then there's others so they bring that whole team together when needed to help develop that and work hand in hand with. Correct, yeah, yeah. I think Lynn, and excuse me he knows my partner very well, so that's why I'm using first name basis with him right now. But anyway, I think Lynn might have shared with you that when he was teaching full time up in Thief River Falls, out of this process came a dire need for a math curriculum, which obviously had nothing to do with brick and mortar, and ultimately the school board, once they saw that, heard that, saw the data, they ultimately looked into and then ultimately ended up changing their math curriculum. But it all came out of the listening session, which again had nothing to do with brick and mortar. So yes, there are those kinds of caveats to this that will help. We'll do whatever we can. Like I said, Lori will be spearheading that or be out front on that throughout. Anything else? I got to tell you, I'm thankful you showed up because we had a 5:31 and I sat here for an hour all by myself. Yeah. No, this was yeah. So